Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hey guys, welcome to another Note to File podcast. Today is April 23rd, 2025. What's up, Denali? How's it going?
That's going decent, sunny. Can't complain.
Sunny.
Not shitty out. Yeah.
That's always nice. That's always nice. I want to point out that today is International English Language Day. So in honor, I will do the whole podcast in English.
Really switching it up today.
I know. I want to start out. Welcome, Bree. I want to start out with a couple of at least 1 to 2. I'm going to hit you with some lightning questions. Okay. You ready? Right off the bat. I'm going to try to trip you up.
Oh, geez. I'm sure you will. Go for it.
So today is also National Picnic Day, of all things. So if you could have a picnic with any person, living or dead, fictional or non-fictional, who would it be?
Living or dead, fictional or non-fictional? Geez, that's a hard one. Like, my mind immediately goes to my husband, but I know that's boring.
That's too cute. You can't. No cute answers, right?
We've been together since 6th grade, and he is like my person. I know that's so gross to most people, but like I don't know. Especially with having 3 young kids, like we don't get enough time together. So I don't know. It's hard for me to get away from him.
I'm not mad at it.
You know, I hate these. I like the questions. My brain just goes like blank, and I'm just like, I don't know. Don't know.
It's good practice.
I know. It's like whenever I ask me, like, what shoes you're wearing, and I'm like, they're on my feet. I never know.
On the spot.
I don't know. I've been really into Eleanor Roosevelt recently. I don't know why. I feel like she did some really cool things. Been reading some like books about her recently.
Good.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that
choice.
for now.
I choose Bree's husband. Because she made him sound so great, and now I want to have a picnic with him.
He's great.
All right.
He won't.
You text me his number.
I will.
All right. We're gonna move on. But again, welcome, Bree. Sorry to bury the lead there, but good to have you back, Bree with Veeva, and start out like I always do. I know you've been on before.
Yes.
So I'm just not go too crazy, but a little intro, a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Yes. Okay. I'll keep it short. I am a nurse by background and grew up kind of working in the neuro ICU, doing all kinds of brain stuff. Loved that. Stumbled upon clinical trials like most of us. Did clinical trials at the University of Florida, the University of Colorado, Denver, and then at Vanderbilt. So all academic medical centers. I remember learning about like site networks and like professional sites much later in my career and being like, wow, it was a whole new world for me. And then I've been at Veeva for about 5 years, and I lead strategy for our sites.
So let me ask you this, just for the sake of our audience, especially. I know, like, I even until just a few years ago, maybe 2 to 3 years ago, I had no idea about Veeva. Didn't know what Veeva did, and then learned later that like you guys have been super embedded in, especially like the sponsor side of things, which I was like, wow, that's okay, crazy. The amount of sort of, I don't know, saturation, whatever the word is, that you guys have had on the sponsor side kind of blew me away. And then obviously you guys are working into some site level stuff, or have been for a while now,
right?
I guess tell me a little bit about, let's start with like what you guys have had for sites. I know Site Vault is out there. Tell me a little bit about Site Vault.
Yeah. So it came out in 2020, which was kind of great timing. Everyone's like trying to find the silver lining of 2020. So one thing for me was we were able to offer this free technology for remote monitoring and to help people kind of stay remote and do all the regulatory documents they needed to do. And so we have had like an investigator site file or an e-regulatory component to Site Vault since 2020. And then a couple of years after that, really the whole reason for doing that was to then create this automatic exchange between the sponsors and CROs that were using our system for regulatory with our research sites. And so we've been working on that and really trying to figure out like, how do we make a seamless connection where no one's having to hook it up themselves, sponsors or CROs or sites. It's just kind of working. It's just turned on for the benefit of sites. And so we've been really focused on that the last couple of years, thinking like, this is the different thing we could do potentially, right? Like think bigger than just the site's internal workings.
But I guess, have you seen like a lot of uptick or interest? Because I think this is something I complain about all the time, like getting your reg documents from a sponsor. Right now, you're just like shoveling emails back and forth. Like, what happens? Things get lost. You end up with emailing a previous version because it's tough to manage, 6 versions of something on your desktop, maybe. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people's experience with this is something maybe like SIP, like shared investigator platform, and you're like, oh God, I don't want. Please don't make that happen.
Yeah,
but even getting a sponsor to give you electronic versions of your documents can even be like oddly challenging sometimes. And we still have binders that show up on site, even though we say, please don't send us.
Yes.
Please don't send us a paper binder. We're gonna burn it and dance around it. We don't want it. So it makes a lot of sense to me. Are you seeing more interest?
Especially... It's a good question. So yes, but it's been slow. So I mean, the real answer to that question is now we have. So we say that there are 17 global pharmaceutical companies, and just because of acquisitions and things like that, and 10 of them have signed on for this connected application. So which is more than what we saw at the height of SIP, but the rollout takes time. Like it's major change management to tell people, thousands of people that are working on these trials, stop emailing and use your system to talk to the site system. They're kind of like, especially CRAs are kind of like, wait, what? And so as we have seen in the past, because this is the technology is honestly the easy part. It's the change management that's hard. And we've had to learn how to build the adoption of the technology. I'll just give you a quick example. We sort of had to learn, like, we need to start making some of these documents go automatically to sites when sponsors are finished with them, because people have that tendency to email, and email is a really tough competitor. And a lot of the sponsors wanted to start slowly with opening a new trial. Now we're seeing sponsors say, some of the big sponsors say, I want to go all in across all of my studies that are active, which is big. And we now have 10,000 sites that have logged in and experienced the connection. So it's growing. It has taken some time. I anticipate, though, the growth will start to become a lot more rapid over the next year or two, which is exciting. And really, like you said, like we have to keep our eye on the ball, because what we're trying to do is hard, and it's failed in the past, and not for bad intentions. Like, I don't think that there were bad intentions set up. I think it's a great idea to be able to help people just work system to system and connect them, and really think more holistically about all the work getting done versus just what sites can only do internally, or sponsors or CROs. But the problems are complicated.
Do you think change management, you mentioned obviously from a sponsor adoption perspective, are you seeing the same thing on sites perspectives?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, especially when it's like, okay, all of a sudden you have one study that you're working on and you can do a connection to the trial master file from your, e-regulatory system. Do you do it? I mean, some of our sites are like, well, can we do it? Well, now we have this one study working in this unique way. Do we do it? And we felt really strongly about that. Like, we wanted sites to have the choice. And so the only ones that can make the connection are the sites. So the sponsors offer it, and the site has to go in at the study level and say, connect my documents. And then what we encourage the sites to do is say, like, you should now not have to have a CRA logging into your system to recheck these regulatory documents. Now on the sponsor and CRO side, they actually get this really cool like tool to reconcile and see new documents that come into the site system. They can't open them or access them, but they can see there's 5 new documents, there's new versions, and they can click a button and request the site to send them. So like, the other thing we learned I think it's just good to be transparent about like the learnings of this. It's not been the easiest thing we've ever done as a company. You can make it too automated, where people are like, I don't know, did it get sent? Did it not get sent? Who got it? What version did they get? Like, you can't just open the floodgates. There still has to be that right element of a human component to this. And we've had to really learn about how to get that right over the last few years.
So I'm curious too, because obviously, like at a site level, you're using maybe SiteVault for some trials, you're using other studies. Like, how do you overcome that experience? And I guess, Brad, too, from your perspective, like you have multiple systems, one does this, one doesn't. Like, how do you reconcile your internal workflows when now you have some of this going on in some and not others?
Well, I wonder, this is a potential segue because a lot of sites are managing their reg maybe in their CTMS. We know there are some standalone products out there. It's great. But if I'm running everything, if I'm running 98% of my studies through my own CTMS, it may be a harder sell, to your point, to be like, wait, I got to use another system, something to keep track of. I'd be curious too. I would imagine it's a fairly common objection that sites may have.
Yeah. Which is why we set it up to be like, this is an e-regulatory technology first. So the idea is like a site owns it and controls it, because they're going to be potentially putting PHI in that thing, and they need to feel like they have full control. And then the connection becomes basically like an additional feature if the sponsor provides it from their end. And that seemed to make the most sense to us, is like to really be able to like, how do we decrease the number of systems sites are having to work on? We don't want to just build a portal, we really want it to be a nice feature off of the EISF. But you're right that like right now, not every single study that they're working on can be connected. And that's where we're going to have to really push for innovation and show the value. And if we do it right, the idea is sites are saying like, I really like to connect. I know you're using Veeva on your side, I'm using Veeva on my side. Can we do this? And they're encouraging it and seeing it as a benefit, or else the whole thing falls down. I mean, the reason why I think SIP is where it is today is because of the site experience was not taken into account enough, right? It's like we see this, the site experience matters. And at the end of the day, it could make or break the technology being adopted.
Yeah, we're real jerks at sites. We don't like it. We're going to do everything we can to not use it. So yeah, I mean, it's being a little silly, but I think it's been undervalued in the past.
Well, but I think it's this, I really like to say when I think about the way that sites work is like the level of complexity you are having to manage to, not by choice, because of all the different sponsors you're working for, like that is not sustainable. And I think when we really think about the next wave of technology in our industry, like I know, Brad, you get excited when people start talking about AI all the time. For me, I'm like, we need to go back to the foundational challenge of what we're dealing with right now, which is like sites cannot manage all of these different systems any longer. And really the only way that's going to be solved for, quite honestly, is going to be sponsors recognizing sites are a shared resource and coming together to give them more of a consistent experience across their studies. Like that is what it's going to take to fix all of the disconnect right now. And we feel pretty strongly about that, this is really about sponsors recognizing like, if we can work in partnerships to bring consistency to sites, everybody wins. The site wins, all the sponsors win, because if they're being inefficient working on another sponsor's trial, then they don't have enough time for yours. Like it's just the reality. And I think we have all wanted to try to solve this in our own way to our own benefit potentially. And now I think we really need to take a step back and look across the industry and say, like, we're going to have to work together to solve all of the different complexity you're having to manage to at the site level.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously big advocate for sites, but sites can be part of the problem too at times. I think, we sometimes like, no, we want to do things our special way. And except there are thousands of us, and it just doesn't hold up well, it's a little bit like, sounds dehumanizing, but I think it's a good point that like sites are a shared resource, you know what I mean? Amongst sponsors. And I've never really considered it quite that way, but it would behoove sponsors to recognize that.
Right.
And instead of being like, everybody do everything however you want to do it, good luck.
Right. Or just focus on my study.
Well, yeah.
The reality is very few sites are staying in business just focusing on one sponsor study, right? So like, I think we have to just be realistic about what's actually creating the challenges that you're experiencing as a site.
Yeah. And I think, sites I think about myself. Like I was a coordinator, not a businessman. I was a technician, I guess, so to speak, like starting a company, right? And so a lot of sites have great intentions, but don't necessarily always have the resources or even the know-how to like pull all this stuff together. So it is challenging. And I think, having that support from a higher level would be welcomed, in so many cases. And to your point, like this is a bigger thing. It's a bigger thing than your site or your study at one site. It's just more expansive. We aren't really thinking about that perspective, I think, enough. Also, so yeah, I do want to segue because since I met you, I've been like, guys, make a CTMS.
Yes.
And you are?
And we are.
Question mark?
No, we
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point. Yes, we're really excited. And I mean, sitting in my seat for the last 5.5 years, it's been really hard saying that we don't have one. But that was intentional because, again, like going back to saying, we don't want to just make another CTMS. Like there's a lot of options out there. So what are we going to do that's really going to benefit sites? And knowing that this is a technology that most sites already have, we're going to have a pretty big reason for them to go through all the work to get off of what they're using and to transition to a Veeva site vault CTMS, right? So with that in mind, we really wanted to think about, again, the unique position we have is that connection with sponsors and CROs. So about 80% of all global trials right now that are active are running on Veeva technology somewhere. And maybe the sponsor CRO is using multiple applications or maybe just one. But I mean, that's a big part of the active trials that are out there today. So the idea with the CTMS will be kind of following the same thing that we did with the regulatory documents of how there's so much, when you think about a CTMS, and I don't know, Brad, Denali, you probably, and Denali, you probably give a better talk on this than me potentially. So we'll see. So please add in. But it's really kind of a frustrating technology to have because when you think about it, what you're doing is you're basically keeping your own record for your site of almost everything that you've already entered somewhere else in a sponsor system. And because you cannot get control and see your business across the studies, you also have to have a CTMS and you have to rekey all that stuff in. And, once you get to a larger size or you're more complex, like it's non-negotiable. You have to have that to understand your business, to get paid, to know what's happening in that day, because again, you're working across so many trials. So our thought is like, if we could automate some of this data flow with sponsors and CROs on our applications, and now feeling like we really have more of a plan for that, that could be the game changer. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, when you're thinking about that automation, and maybe it's too early as you guys are just sort of rolling this out, but what are you thinking as far as those integrations? Like what are the places you're starting for those data integration points between the site system and the sponsor systems you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good question because, like I said, so much of it needs to be automated. So, we're thinking about things like, people ask us all the time, are you going to do eSource? And the answer right now is like, we're not doing that yet because we now believe this year that half of all of the new EDC builds will be done in our EDC. So when we think about some of this, we're like, okay, that's a lot of EDCs out there that are using our technology, where there's having to be an understanding of visits and data and procedures. Like, when I think about eSource at the foundation of it, it's almost like an EDC delivery problem, because the site gets this EDC they can't do anything with. And if they could just tweak it a little bit, add some fields the sponsor couldn't see, really lock down what the sponsor needs, right? Like maybe we would need to go through a site rebuilding an EDC and eSource, right?
Yeah,
I'm not saying that's possible today, but that's something that we're thinking about, is like, we don't want to recreate necessarily ways that sites work today if we don't feel like it could really benefit them in the future. Like again, there's some great eSource companies out there. I'm not knocking that technology at all. I'm just saying we're thinking, what could we do that could be more innovative? And if we can't figure that out, should we just release yet another version of something that already exists, right? Probably not. So The clinical data is a big one, and we have that on a lot of our systems. We also have a protocol training product, feasibility with standard feasibility surveys. So we're thinking a lot about the technology that we have that's out there right now and how well adopted it is from sites and sponsors, from sponsors and CROs. Brad, that going back to your earlier question, and that's really one of the ways that we're thinking about driving the connections, because the more usage we have on the other side, the more the site will benefit.
And I don't know, I love how thoughtful that is, because I think there's so often you see folks come to market and they see something shiny and they're like, I'm going to do this too.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily using the benefit of who you are as an organization or the vantage point you have. It's just sort of chasing something that someone else is doing. And so I like the idea that you're using what you have and then basing your direction off of that. I think that's really smart.
Yeah. I like our CEO says a lot, we run our own race, and you can really get distracted, but you do want to know, what does your horse bring to the table that no one else does, or your skills. And that is something that's really important to us. And we don't want to just build more site technology for the sake of doing it, because I have a lot of respect for the technology companies that are already out there. We are, I think, trying to see if we can solve the problem in a bigger, more innovative way. And until we really feel confident of that, sometimes we wait.
Well, and I think that the example you brought up is one I've wondered about a lot. And this is, if you go back to guidance from 15 years ago from FDA about direct data entry.
Don't even get me started.
I've just always wondered, why do we need two? Why can't we have a look? I don't care about the EDC, if I'm being honest. The EDC is not for me. The EDC is for the sponsor.
Right.
If I collect my data and it's, whatever, it's a site facing, but then can push to a sponsor facing. And again, I think the only people well positioned to do that are some that have those relationships and that saturation on the sponsor side, right? So I know there are other ED or other CTMS systems that are trying to make deals with to do pushes to EDCs. It's fine, but you're already there, you're already in it. So being able to sort of have that, I think, makes it a lot more exciting to me, because again, to your point, why build the same thing again? Just to utilize what you have available and the sort of market saturation you have on that side, and everybody's lives could be so much easier. So hurry up.
We have a comment from a LinkedIn user that I want to bring up, but it's looking at sites could benefit from more unified direct, but it has to be work for the sites. Obviously that's how we've gotten the fragmented place we have historically. And I think my question then on this is, Bree, what are you guys doing on your side to make sure that your solutions are going to work for the sites?
Yeah. On our side, we have a team of people that I'm on, and all we do is focus on sites. Sites are our customer. So all the feedback that we're getting, everything that we're building, it's all for sites. And then we look at what we have and what can be connected for their benefit that exists on the sponsor and CRO side, and we make the connections. We're not trying to pass down technology that, sponsors and CROs designed or told us that they wanted. We're truly making technology for the site, for their benefit. And then we're looking at that and saying, now what can we connect on the other side? And the reality is, it's a lot. The reality is almost we have an information exchange problem in our industry. That is the core of what's happening. We don't have a lot of standards and data. Think about all the different ways you could name a document type. And then if you want to capture information around it, there's really no standards around that. And so that's part of the challenge, is with this lack of standards and with technology companies that really, have had to focus on a certain segment to get traction. They're focused on small sites or site networks or big sites or little CROs or little biotechs. We have, and this is not to my credit because I didn't do any of this at Veeva, but we just have been in a unique position where we really are covering a whole lot of segments of medtech, biotech and pharma, small sites, site networks, academic medical centers. And so I think we just have a responsibility with that much, covering that much market share, to really think about the information exchange problem that we can, I think, make a big impact on.
Yeah. I think, again, that makes perfect sense. I think I'm curious. So do you guys have sort of your initial CTMS offerings? My understanding is that, you guys are maybe rolling out features kind of as you as you go. Is that
Mhm.
correct? I mean,
Yeah, we do a release 3 times a year. Our CTMS will be available on our next release in August. We are demoing it. We have quite a surprising pipeline of people that have reached out to us to look at it. So you can go to sites.veeva.com. You can sign up. You can get a demo of it. We're going to be demoing it at ACRP. We're going to be showing it quite a bit there. We're very excited about that. So the code is written. We know what it's going to look like. We have a plan for a roadmap over the next year, which is exciting. We didn't even start doing the first line of code a year ago, and it's already going to be out. So my thought is it will develop pretty quickly. We want to be thorough, but a lot of people on our team, from the product side to the engineering side, they have experience with CTMS for sites in the past. So a lot of us are like, all right, this is our second time around. How do we do this better? Like in hindsight, which is kind of a good feeling. So I don't expect it will take too long to really be at parity with a lot of the other companies out there. But you're right, we do have to start somewhere. And the last thing I'll say about that is what we don't want to do is build out this massive product and say, it's released, use it. The best way to improve a product is to release it as early as you can, where people get value, and then you co-develop it with your customers. They give you feedback. I really like this. I really like that. Like that's how you build a better product. And so our intention was to release it early, knowing it's not going to be completely fully baked. But as we then release more, it's improved by the experience the customers are having. And they're helping really push how it gets developed. Because most sites at this point have already used a CTMS and they've got ideas, So yeah.
Sites have opinions.
They do. I really like that about them. Yeah.
And I appreciate the transparency in all of this too, and collaboration. I think that's great. One thing I'm curious about is you obviously listed off, there's a lot of different types of sites, right? Like there's site networks, there's independent sites, there's health systems, hospitals, AMCs. How are you guys thinking about that from a market perspective and who you're designing for and with? Because their needs are going to vary.
Sure. So the reality is, like, again, if we want to build this connection and sponsors want to depend on it, we know that they're working with all different types of sites. Maybe they have a lot of oncology products, maybe they're not, maybe they're derm, like maybe they're rare disease, and it really could vary. Maybe they're ophthalmology. So we do need to make a product, and that also hasn't really been done, to cover all site markets. And I think what we have to know is we have to have features that are easy to use if you need them, or turn off if you don't, like a Medicare coverage analysis. Brad probably doesn't need that, thank God. Or like things like, really understanding for these big sites, resource allocation becomes a big challenge. Like you have so much ebb and flow of patients and activities and volumes of procedures happening that day. And like you're spending a ton of time figuring out, are the right people where they need to be? Do I need to hire more people? Who's not busy? Who's overly burdened? So there will certainly be some things that we know not everyone's going to necessarily need or use. But we also think the reality is a lot of what we see with sites is they scale over time, if it makes sense for them. And so we really want to build a product, and that's what we've tried to do, that can scale as a site scales, picks up more locations, potentially picks up more departments. And we're really committed to doing that. I don't want to say that it's like a breeze, but I also want to say that, my experience with a lot of what the sites need outside of some of these kind of core features, like a whole biospecimen tracking, like it's not two massively different products. There are features that some of the complex sites need that other sites may not. And we're really trying to stay on top of that the best that we can.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think, if I look back to even where I was, I don't know, 2 to 3 years ago, my needs are different now than they were then. So yeah, it's something that can scale along with the site, or help a site to scale. So then you're not having to go look at a whole bunch of other options because your CTMS just doesn't handle it. And I think this is where we find ourselves in so often. And, again, I don't think anyone's going to build the perfect mousetrap necessarily, but I think there's still a long ways to go in terms of getting a little bit closer, and we're not quite there yet. So I'll just be relying on you guys. No pressure, though.
No pressure. I was like just about to say that. No pressure. Yeah. I mean, and it feels good. Like I tell my team all the time, as soon as we figure this out, which, and I don't want to like belittle, I think it's going to take a little bit of time. Can't wait to go back and work at a site again, because that was my whole goal in doing this, is like, then I want to go back and like live through having more consistency in the way that you work, where the technology and all the different ways of working is no longer a barrier to why you got into this work at the site level. You know, that to me is going to be the icing on the cake. And if that's my personal mission of trying to figure this out and do this right, is like, I didn't necessarily become a nurse to like retire at a technology company. I really want to get this right. And then I want to go back and try to experience something that's a little more just seamless to work with the technology and do all the administration of the studies, so that we have more energy and time for the patients and the science, you know, and also relationship building. The last thing I'll say about that is like, I remember getting my job. I'm just going to be transparent about this. Like, first getting my job at Veeva, and for the first time talking to like executives within pharma and CRO companies, and thinking, oh my gosh, they don't hate sites. Like, they're trying to help. And truly, that was something that I didn't know, you know, because I didn't have access to those types of people. And I just thought, like, why are you making decisions that when I started this work 15 years ago, paper was easier than an EDC? Like, that was the reality. You know, the technology felt like it was becoming this barrier. So I'm really hopeful that, you know, we're going to make some big progress in our industry, and that I will be excited to go back and experience what it's like to be at a site again.
Close the loop.
Close the loop. Yeah.
Well, I like that. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm excited. I know a lot of people are excited to sort of see the announcement. And again, something I know I've been bugging you and others at Veeva about, to be like, hey man, just make a CTMS already. I mean, why aren't you doing it? So I'm excited to see it come to fruition and sort of how it evolves over the next few years. Tell me a little bit about Veeva Summit.
Oh yeah.
I know I was lucky. I got to go last year.
Yes. Yes.
But I know you guys are trying to do
like our test run.
Yeah, I know you guys are trying to do more site focused stuff. So
yes,
tell us about that.
Well, we're kind of hijacking a little bit a summit that we've had for like over a decade. And our team, again, that have nothing to do with this, has just done a great job of really getting a lot of decision makers and people that focus on technology from sponsors and CROs. It's generally in Boston. Last year, we had about 2,400 attendees. A few of them were sites like you, Brad, which was awesome. And really, it's about kind of figuring out, what is everyone doing? Like, one of my pet peeves when I go to a technology talk is if the technology company is up there and you don't really actually know like what's happening, how someone's using the technology, if they like it, if the benefit is real, or if it's something that's really just this future vision, like what is actually real. And so we've really tried to focus on that at our summit, which is why I think we've had good traction, where, you know, the sponsors of the world are getting up there and they're talking and they're highlighting and they're demoing and they're really talking about what they're doing, and they get also insight into all of our roadmaps and things that are coming down the pipeline. And so for the first couple of years I went, I was just like kind of agonizing over like, sites need to be here. You know, like, this is everything sites need to know. Like, what is the future? What's happening with engagement and technology? How are these sponsors making decisions? And like, could we pull back the curtain and get sites here? So we did that some last year. And I think what it showed us is the sponsors loved it. They are really struggling to access real feedback from end users of technology, from leaders at sites, sometimes both in one person, you know. And so this year we're really focused on doing demos of technology and seeing like the site and the sponsor side. We're focused on workshops. We just did a big survey. If you haven't filled it out yet, please do fill that out. But we're doing a big survey. We're trying to understand the biggest pain points sites are having with working with their sponsors. So we're going to take some of that. We're going to workshop around it. We're going to do scenarios where sites and sponsors have like a couple hours to really sit there and talk through change and things that they need to really improve the way they work together. We're going to have a site celebration dinner. We're going to have case studies from sites about sort of tech that they've put in place and how it's helped them. And so really the only time Veeva's up there is when we're talking about roadmaps and what's coming down the pipeline. And other than that, it's going to be site and sponsors really connecting more than just system to system, but person to person. And I think that's really where the change can really come and be driven in the industry, is the relationships that are yet to really be built for so many people at the site level, especially.
Maybe this is a silly question that I should know the answer to, but like, why do we think that is? Like, why is there, like you said, like the sponsors have a tough time getting in touch with sites? Like, why? Why is that the case?
I think it's a great question. I mean, I think, I'll go to my own experience of like when I ran a 60-person team. That wasn't a big team, but for me, I recognize I had assumptions about what some of those people were doing in systems that I was no longer logging into. I was working off a lot of assumptions, and when I look at these sponsors with 90 to 100,000 people globally across their teams, certainly with very specialized teams making decisions about technology, like to get down to the level of the site person using that system that they quite honestly may not even know the ins and outs of, that they've implemented, I think it's really hard. And so I think there hasn't been an opportunity for those people to truly just be served up to them. Like, here are the users. They're here. Talk to them, and that's what I'm hoping. And that's what we're going to do. Like we need to push the easy button to say, hey, you busy sponsors X, you're already here. We're hijacking this a little bit. Here are the sites that you really want to talk to and get to know. And something I learned last year is like, we just need to let the sites talk. We know we can't really control the conversation or how polished it's going to be, but the fruit of that and the honesty and the transparency, even for us last year, was huge. I'll just give one quick example. We had a big pharma company that had spent a ton of time like committing to a single sign-on experience for their sites, which was very good intentioned. But when a site came up there and was like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. I'm logging into so many systems all day long. Can you just use Veeva's single sign-on? Because I'm already using it with my other sponsors. And I'm passionate about this. And that's what it took for that pharma company to go, okay, that's right, shared resource. Like, we are in this together with the sites, and we need to stop thinking that we always have the best experience. A consistent experience sometimes is better. And so I just think they don't know how to access these people, Denali, you know what I mean? So that is our hypothesis. And at least last year, as we tested it, it was accurate. So hopefully we're going to see even more come out of this year.
Yeah, I've been talking about this a lot lately, but I feel like sites don't have a lot of direct interaction with the sponsor. Now, vendors are very happy to talk to sites. Vendors, I assume, are very happy to talk to sponsors, but in some ways they kind of end up being this like middleman, I guess, so to speak. And then, you're like, well, what are they telling me and what are they telling them, and why aren't we just talking together around the solutions versus like this game of telephone where it gets just easy to get confused, messages to get sort of convoluted. So it doesn't sound like much, but I really think a lot of change can come from sites and sponsors communicating directly, either whether it be around a system or not, just in general, what I mean? And we are seeing more of that. I think sponsors do want to hear from sites, I don't know, go on LinkedIn. There's no shortage of sites who want to like tell you, where their pain points are. Too many. So like, just talk to some,
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why you've gotten so much traction. It's just like your transparency, and obviously they do want to know. They really do. They do want to help. So, and now, we're putting ourselves in that position of trying to be the connector. And so I think we're just taking on another level of responsibility that is really important for me, at least. And I think for the whole Veeva team to really figure out how do we help improve this information exchange in these relationships.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to say it's like the future. I think it's going to be a big game changer if we keep getting in front of each other at anywhere, whether it be a summit or not, but again, it's hard we've talked about this even like for the podcast. Like, how do we? I want more sponsor people to come on and talk.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard to get people from sponsors on. And again, I hope that sentiment changes over time. And I don't know if that's they work for big sort of regulated corporations. They don't want their people going on and saying God knows what on a silly low production podcast. But I still think that would do a lot for the industry if we keep opening up those conversations little by little.
Well,
yeah, we should talk about a live stream podcast at Summit. If you guys.
So we've
started that conversation. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Well, we got a chance to meet with some of your folks last week at the UW Madison conference.
Yes.
So we met Anthony and Aaron, and it was just good to start that conversation. I know there's a couple people here, in Madison where I'm at, so I had some conversations there, which has been great, and hopefully we'll find our way to Boston. When is it?
September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and there's no cost to come. So on the sponsor CRO side, it's sort of an invitation mostly for customers or like prospects, but there's no cost for them to come. On the site side, we get to be a little more open, which is exciting. Like if you work at a site, you have an invitation and there's no cost to attend.
And Veeva will pay you to come, right? Is that right? Or
not quite there.
Okay. All right. All right. I mean, I'm just testing the waters,
I mean, if you don't ask, you may never know.
That's right.
And what up, Dan? Looks like Dan's asking, when do you know you're going to have an agenda? Potentially looks like he was there last year.
Probably not for, it's usually 2 or 3 months out, Dan. That's a really great question. I mean, we really ride up into the moment of like, what are the current topics? What are we doing? Like 1 year we announced like 7 new applications. I mean, and so we kind of use the momentum going in to sort of feel out like, what are the current things that need to be addressed? So probably be 2 or 3 months before September, and when you'll start to see the agenda dropping.
Awesome.
Makes sense. And you said CTMS in your August release.
CTMS in August. Yes.
All right. I can't wait to beat it up.
We can't wait. We can't wait to have your feedback.
I need to get a demo. I think you had emailed me about it.
Yes.
I promptly ignored it.
I wasn't offended.
I'm like, August. That's like 6 years away. August, right? So I got time.
That's true. But we want you to be able to like pull the trigger in August. So
yeah, I get it. Very cool. Anything else? Anything else you want to hit on while you're here?
I feel like I'm good. Denali, do you have any more questions for me?
No, I do have to tell you a very cute story though. I was putting my daughter to bed the other night, and she asked for the Rainbow Fish book, and I was like, okay, like the one with the scales, like we're gonna get the scale book, and she's like, no, the Rainbow Fish book.
Oh man, to even be in that category. So my little side hobby has been writing a children's book for everyone that has little kids that is in children's book world. Or is around little kids. So that is a high compliment, because that is like one of the best-selling children's book of all time is the Rainbow Fish. So.
Well, that's not her Rainbow Fish book. She's been sleeping with it. It's quite cute. So I was like, I'll tell Bree when I talk to her next.
Thank you so much. Please tell her that means so much to me.
And if you're listening, go buy Bree's book for your kids or for yourself as an adult. Still good reading.
Thanks, Brad. What an awesome plug. I appreciate that.
Well,
we're helping each other in all the ways we can. We got to.
I mean, I do expect commission, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk.
Use the promo code note to file.
I'll have to come up with that.
Perfect. Well, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I know, since you've announced CTMS, and again, that's been a particular interest of mine. We are Site Vault users, and like what you guys do. I really hope that the fact you guys have that connection on the back end, which again, I didn't know for years as a site level person, that because I was like, Veeva, what the hell's Veeva? And they're like, it's what everyone uses. So I was like, oh, damn. Okay. Well, maybe there's something here that can actually make a big difference.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so glad your experience has been good. And, even though we have gotten a lot of traction, I think we also know like, you can't get too comfortable, and you have to always keep innovating. So it feels good to hear, but we're not sleeping on it. So we're still getting up and thinking about what we need to do better every day. And that's one of the reasons why I love working there.
Yeah. And I'll say that, throughout the years, you guys have been extremely open to feedback and reaching out to sites all the time. I mean, I can see that there's a real commitment to getting feedback and being part of the site community. I mean, I think that means a lot, and people notice that.
I think that's the strongest thing I've seen in any vendor tech company, is that transparency and collaboration is massively important for general success. So appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, that's great to hear. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, anytime. I'm sure we'll try to drag you back on after CTMS comes out and have conversation about that, or maybe as we approach Summit. And
that sounds great.
We'll look forward to it. And we'll be back next week with a sticky notes. Is that right?
Yep, we got a sticky notes next week. Same time, same place. Probably a little bit of nonsense.
Mostly a good chunk of nonsense.
And if there's anything you want to hear us talk about next week on Sticky Notes, go to notetofilepodcast.com, and there's a contact us form where you can drop ideas of shit you want to hear us talk about, and we'll see if we want to.
That's it. Thanks again, Bree.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day, everybody.
See you guys next week. Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.